Jan, you're good to start.
All right, good. We'll call the meeting to order. First thing is, has anyone had a chance, I know I have, but has anyone else had a chance to read Max's minutes?
Yep, I did.
Was that a yes?
Jen said yes.
Okay.
I'm just seeing them now.
Maybe we'll just take a minute and have a quick review.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it's just about one page. And
Yeah, pretty quick.
I've reviewed them as well, guys.
Okay, thank you.
We could also just table the minutes to next meeting if we want.
I think we should be through it pretty quick here.
I'm good.
Okay. All right. We have a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
A second.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor? All four of us?
I
All right. We'll approve the minutes as issued. Thank you, Max, for doing it, going above and beyond and getting these minutes out to
Now
us.
if I can only get them out earlier.
Get them out a day or two ahead. That
would be good.
Versus an hour or two. Okay, great. So for the chairman's report, the only thing I have that was really kind of amazing to me is, and I actually attached it to the reminder of the meeting today, was the announcement of the new business. And I wish George was on the here at the meeting, because I'm sure he could give us a better update than anybody. But
You're talking about American Unagi?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the way that article read, it's a $10 million investment, and which is
It's significant.
about as big as we've heard in a long
27,000 square feet, I believe. 13 jobs, I think, is what she estimated. In addition to supporting local elver fishermen.
And you know what's really kind of interesting is that this, when you think about economic development and you look at a business like this, which is going to take elvers that we have been catching in our own river and shipping to Japan, and having the folks in Japan raise them, grow them into eels, agura, I guess, and then actually send some of them back to America to be eaten at Japanese restaurants.
Yeah. And
she's saying, no, we can take elvers right here from our own river and raise them and cut out that, however many thousands of miles trip that is, both ways. So it seems like a really kind of brilliant idea from my perspective. And I'm really, really pleased that she's selected Waldoboro and the business park for her new business. Now, so
Tom actually has a question.
I just wanted to make a comment. Jen and I had the privilege of listening to Sarah Rodemaker talk. Was it Saturday, Jen?
Friday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
At Midcoast Conservancy, which had a get together. And she is an impressive woman. She's really is driven by her ideas. She's got an interesting one. And it's a very convincing concept. I hope that she works this through. Yeah,
And it sounds like she has financial backing.
it does. Sounds like she's lined it all up. I mean, they're starting the construction. I think the newspaper reported that the equipment that she's using was imported from what, Denmark
Netherlands, I
or the
think.
Netherlands?
Netherlands, I
Yeah.
think.
And she's getting it here, if it's not here already. It's
Yeah, if I can add on to that,
yeah.
Sarah actually asked me to come out and just see the site. George, if he was here, would be saying that he saw me there at the same time. And they were just starting to pour out the concrete, and it was just truly great to finally see it done. And I told her all you need to do is have a little tape recording of me saying, "I'm finally glad this is happening," and that probably would have captured the entire site visit that I had. But yeah, the equipment's come from I think it was the Netherlands.
I think you're right.
And they had to work very hard and wait a long time for, I think, one of the visas for one of their workers to go through. And I think now they're staying in the downtown area while this is happening. But yeah, this was something the planning board approved back in 2019, I think. And the building permits just had to be delayed because of COVID.
Are there any concerns that the new wave of COVID could delay it again?
No, the initial delay for COVID was more about importing all the materials and the workers, but we got all that stuff here. They have all that stuff here right now. So the next COVID could happen, and there's really no disruption to the supply chain at this point. So we should be good. We should be good.
Hey, Max?
Yeah.
Sarah said that this is 7 years that she has spent on developing the project.
What I read in the article was that she had been doing this on a very small scale at her home in Thomaston, I think.
And
In her
then
basement.
in her basement, and
Yeah.
then she eventually got to work with University of Maine up in Franklin, and I got the privilege to go out there and actually see that facility in the midst of it. And I actually brought Ted Worcester out there at the same time because he wanted to look around the place as well.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just amazing to see it all happen, and seeing all the concrete laid out. I see where she's working on where everything will be,
Yeah.
but it's
All right.
stuff.
So and the only other thing I have is, of course, Ted Worcester passed. And as you know, Ted's been a very active member of our committee and since I started, he was a member. And before that, he's been on the select board and just about done everything there is to do, I think, within the town. So condolences to Ted's family. It's a real big loss for the town of Waldoboro. Okay. I don't know if we stole all your thunder with the Agura, but is there any other town updates?
Town updates. So, at least for the planning board, with it, Sincarfa, who's the solar company on Controversy Lane, they are coming to the planning board next week to submit their logistics plan, which is just their construction plan, but a bit more detailed to address some of the concerns from the neighborhood. Once that's done, they should be on track to start construction in the fall. They still need to officially get the building permit. The work still needs to be done on the road, but the logistics plan, the road association, and the decommissioning plan were the big three items that sort of been holding them back. 2 of them are going to be done in the decommissioning plan. I'm working with them now, and that should be done in September maybe, so they can probably get their building permit around that time, and then they'd start construction. Well,
Have they done anything to modify their offering to residents that you're aware of?
yeah, you're talking about the relay marketing thing that I
Yes.
brought to this, like,
Yeah,
no,
no?
no.
Okay.
I know I passed their offer on to Waldeboro Business Association, and Jen can probably fill in the gap from that point, but I don't know if anything's really progressed from there. Has it, Jen?
No, we asked for more information and never got a response.
There is another company out there that's knocking on people's doors called iSolar. Have you heard anything about them?
So I did have one resident ask me about that, and I've asked Sincarfa and I asked Sunrays, who are the people who already have the solar place, and they say that they don't work with iSolar, but apparently that's a group that the PUC uses to market all solar projects. So I'm still thinking that's a bit shady, and I reached out to the PUC and said, can you tell me anything about this group, because this is very concerning, and we want to make sure that people aren't getting scammed, especially when the two developers are saying they're not associated with this person. And I don't believe I've gotten a response from them yet. But I'll do a bit more digging on that, because when that was brought up, I thought that was a bit concerning.
Yeah, one of the emails I got was from a resident who, someone knocked on the door and got really pushy. And this person just said, I really don't want to talk to you about this. I don't like the way you're trying to push me into something.
Yeah, that's not really a good welcoming thing, really.
Yeah.
Other town updates. I feel I say it every month, but now we have Sylvania. The select board voted was it last meeting or was it two meetings? Last meeting, to create a Sylvania Development Committee.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a 9-person, possibly 11-person committee with the intent of simply rehabilitating the Sylvania property with whatever is a use that will fit the community's needs. The applications are open, so if anyone knows of someone who would be interested in joining, then they can feel free to submit an application. I think it is open to anyone, so it can also be someone from this committee right now, which is an announcement I'm saying now to 4 out of 7-person committee, but that is just something to that I'm just pointing out. I already brought it up to the Conservation Commission, and they're thinking it might be a good idea to have someone there, especially because we might want to have some like shoreland trail work done there, and I think it's beneficial to look at some commercial aspects so the property pays for itself, essentially. But other than that, it's more of just a passive, easygoing thing at this point. John's getting appropriate authorization to make sure that he can at least cut the grass on the site. And I have to go into the Haas's house at some point to inspect it, so we can see what.
Congratulations.
I need to eventually see what can be done to save the building. We can find a use for it.
The Historical Society is really interested in having a look as well. Maybe when you go look, you could invite Gene Lawrence or Bill Maxwell or both of them to go with you.
Yeah, I'll give them. Yeah, I'll make sure to give them a heads up on that when I do it.
Okay.
That house has been sitting vacant for how long?
It's a long time.
I
mean, it
think
was bought in the 60s, wasn't it?
it was, we got new information about this. We thought this house had its well contaminated. We've thought that all along.
Right, which is the reason that Sylvania bought it.
No, that's not the reason Sylvania bought it. Its well was never contaminated. They bought it because back in the 60s, they thought they might want to grow and they would need more land. So they made an arrangement with the owners at that time, the Hobson's family, to sell it to them. There was a, there's a contract. They made a
Interesting.
survey, a drawing of a place back in the late 60s. I still want to get a copy of that for the file, the town's file. So Max can at least have it and look at it.
Okay.
But no, there was no contamination at all on their well because it's upland of the area that's been affected. The plume is flowing southwest and their well was a lot closer
Yeah,
to
a
the
lot
house.
more, yeah.
And they also had a cistern in the basement that they got their water from.
I've seen that well, actually.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. So, I thought this was part of the issue as well, but it's not. They're not allowed to use their water. They had to hook them up to town water, and they hooked them up, I guess, from the Sylvania
Site.
site. They had access through the Sylvania site, but that was because it was close and it was easy, and because they had this contract to make the property available to Sylvania. So as a quid pro quo, one of the things Sylvania did was hook them up to Sylvania's water source. And yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff.
So they're on town water
They're on Sylvania water, which is town water.
and septic after that, probably.
I don't know.
I think the sewer does reach them,
Does it?
but I don't know if they've ever hooked up to it. I'd have to ask the utility
Yeah.
districts.
I mean, maybe they'd give us a copy of the contract since everybody associated with the property who lived there has passed, but they allowed the last owner, the father of Richard's father, to live there until he passed away, which is what, 2014.
Yeah.
So he stayed there a lot longer than anyone anticipated. And by that time, things had changed completely.
So
what are some of the things that you would consider for the house? Like a museum or?
I think when we were initially talking, the idea was a historical society, but more focused on the maritime activities for the Madamic. I think that was the big one we were talking about last year. But I mean, if it can be opened up to more office-like things, maybe that could be where the shellfish warden or the recreation director could be, especially if the area becomes more of a recreation-focused area.
Yeah. Interesting.
Again, we need to even see if the building can be safe first.
Yeah.
Because if not, it might just be torn down. So that, and I was actually talking to Will Pratt before this meeting. Another thing that dawned on me is we'll probably have to do an environmental review of it, similar to what we did with 80 Gray. So,
That makes sense.
but it should be free through the county. So there's no bother there. But the other update that I have is 80 Gray. I had the engineering group working with Volunteers of America come in yesterday. In fact, he was in the building just looking around to make sure everything's right. He's gonna get his engineering designs done, and hopefully volunteers can move forward with the project.
And their intention is still to move forward.
Their intention is still to move forward.
Great, good.
The National Register, unfortunately, did not give us a designation for 80 Gray School, but they said that was primarily because of all the work the YMCA had done that destroyed a lot of the interior work. So not really a good winning streak for the Y in this past few years. And I'm trying to think. I think that's there is like a different topic I have that's apart from the town. It's more on EDA, but I don't know if we want to go through everything else first.
Yeah, I don't think we have a whole lot today. I want to talk about the comprehensive plan a little bit.
Okay.
Just another real quick thought with the expansion at the business park. Is there any additional thought to having the sewer and water lines go out that way?
That's actually part of what I was going to talk about with the EDA, actually.
Well, Well, why don't you go ahead and do it?
So I always keep talking about the EDA and how the town should be prepared for when there's like one of those special occasions where we could probably get more than 50%. Well, what do you know? That's actually happened now. So as part of the American Rescue Plan Act, EDA is getting a very sizable amount of money going towards projects, public infrastructure projects. And they're giving a special surplus amount to projects that address COVID-related issues. So towns that have been negatively impacted by COVID, and we'd have to actually show that we lost business because of COVID, and making communities COVID resilient. So if the next pandemic happened, how would we be able to not be as hurt? Which I think that's more focused for the tourism focused. They even sort of mentioned it. An example is shifting away from a tourism focused economy and to make it more diverse.
Yep.
And usually an EDA funds 50% of the project. Minimum, we can have an EDA fund, the federal government fund 80% of an EDA project through this program. Now, here's the caveat. We have to submit plans before September of next year. And EDA takes a while to even get to the submission phase. So we would have to know a project and we'd have to act on it very quickly. So that's why one of the options is we could do the sewer water expansion to the industrial park. That is an option. Because I remember when I talked with George about it, it would cost maybe $4 million to go along 32 up to the industrial park. Although water we could do 32 as well, or we could just cut across from Cross Street. That's an option as well. We'd have to talk to the water department about that.
And do we have the capacity for water and sewer? Can we, in other words, do we have enough capacity in our water reserve to add on those businesses and those?
I'd have to talk to both utility districts. I literally just found about the EDA improvements just 2 days ago. Like I was at webinar. Wait, no. When was it? No, the webinars were last week. And I was only just attending some of the things this past week. But let me start over. There were webinars last week. And I talked with my EDA contact on Monday to make sure that I wasn't crazy hearing 80% as a minimum was a real figure. And he said, no, you're not crazy. That is real. And so that's actually why I talked with Ruben and said, could we move it to next week so I could get some more information on that? Because one thing that I feel hearing that a lot of people are going to move towards is broadband, and that is a possible project. So that's why I'm going to wait for a webinar session on that, I think next week on Monday, so I can learn more about that program and make sure, what ins and outs are required. But to your question on getting sewer and water up to industrial park, that is more than a perfectly acceptable
Project for this.
At $4 million, we'd only have to pay 20% of that. Now, see 4 different hands. Do you mind if we go with Jen first, just because she hasn't done too many questions?
Go ahead, Jen.
I just wanted to clarify, did you say that we had to submit the plans before September 2022?
Yeah, September of next year is when the final awards are done. Like EDA is a rolling application program, so we can submit an application anytime between now and September of next year. But I literally was talking with someone who has a shovel-ready project now, and when I was done going through the timeline with them, I pretty much told them, do not expect EDA to give you the money until maybe January. Now, obviously, once we get awarded before September, we have 3 years to do the project. So if this is a 3-year project, we're fine as long as we make sure we meet that deadline. But it's also a first come, first served basis. With Damerscotta, where they have their EDA project going on, they got 70% of that funded, 75% of that funded through a FEMA related natural disaster. And I told the people, and I told the town manager there and a bunch of people working on the project last November, you're lucky you got in when you did, because they were awarded the April of last year.
Hmm.
I told them in November, you're lucky you got in when you did, because they ran out of funding today.
Huh.
So, and that could happen with us, especially with a lot of projects now and towns now being eligible for this funding. So September is the timeline. September is the deadline, but that doesn't mean we should wait until September.
And then the other
Sorry.
question I have is
Sorry,
that-
Bob had it.
Oh, sorry, Bob.
first.
Can we also include in that bringing water and sewer up south on Route 1 from the Kalos Corner intersection or from the light to where we might be putting in a medical arts building?
And I talked with Julie about that. That we could do that and have it mixed in with the downtown master plan if we wanted to.
So it wouldn't be related to bringing stuff to the business park then? Wouldn't be part of that?
I can talk with my contact from EDA and see if just a general sewer water expansion would be plausible. I think it's supposed to fit in some type of realm of there, like some well-connected plan of it, like project area. I don't know how they're going to feel about extending sewer water here, extending sewer water there, because if we,
It would relate to a specific project.
well, I know, but I think what they're going to say is you have one project that's having sewer and water go 2 miles up 32 just to get to this one spot. And then you have this other project that's not even a quarter of a mile. I see what you're saying. That's the exact opposite route. So it's kind of like when we had to do the Connect Main grant and had to do 3 different grants.
But we could do it as 2 separate grants.
We can, but they're not going to fund 2 or 3 different projects for the town of Waldeboro where we're asking for 80% of the funding. Now,
So we could decide which is the more relevant project to
Right.
submit on.
and
That's a tough one.
and EDA is slowly increasing their funding. So whatever, it's usually 50%. Maybe they're going to do 60% next year. I don't know. But I did tell Julie about that. And from the sounds of it, the medical arts building would be a eligible project. And we just need to talk more with Lincoln Health about what that future is going to be. John's here. I wasn't intending like a discussion now, but it's more of Julie and Lincoln Health need to sit down and realize that maybe we can maybe the process could be a bit sooner than we all anticipated.
Well, I know from discussions at the leadership level that that project is part of our fiscal year 22 strategic plan. I don't know exactly what that means, however, but I do know it's something that is included in the plan, is moving that forward.
All right.
What year? I'm sorry, what year?
Fiscal year 2022.
22.
No, I was just saying that
Wow.
we probably just need to sit down with the leadership and Julie and say, hey, how does this possibly work into the plan that Lincoln Health's doing right now? And see what details we can finalize for that.
Where does town sewer and water run now? It must be near there, right? Do we need to expand?
Near where the recreation, near where the medical arts building would be?
Yeah. I mean, there's a medical building kind of on.
Right. It would be, it's at just the entrance of the recreation complex. And on Route 1, it's over at the Family Dollar, I think. So we would have to cut it about a quarter mile to get into the property, regardless of which way we're going.
How about the school? The school doesn't have,
School has it. We could, if we want to have it go up,
is that an easier way to do it?
again, I'd have to talk to the sewer district and water district about it.
I know Route 1 makes sense because it gives you other economic possibilities.
Well, the other part of it is they like to make sure that it's like in that public, the EDA likes to make sure it's in that public right of way.
Yeah.
Because it's a town owned type thing. So they don't want some weird easement issue. Plus, if we have it extended either on Route 1 or West Main Street, we then open it up for some more properties to get into that. But I'm getting into the detail, too many on the details on that. So really what I wanted to say on the whole EDA is that whether we're doing the downtown master plan with the medical arts building, community center, and all these like UMO pieces and off-street parking and whatever else we want to throw in there at this point. That's all something that we could get done. Like we are there pretty much. We just need to finalize details, go out to the residents and say, what else would you add in there? Get some estimates, and then we could just submit the downtown master plan. And that's our EDA. If we want to go forward with getting sewer and water up to the industrial park, saying how, and if George especially can vouch that there's going to be more aquaculture going to that area,
Right.
that might be what we have to, that might be something we could do. It's all stuff that we should get going on right now.
That was my next question is, September 2022 sounds like it's, forever away, but you probably, what's a good date in your mind to get a submittal in for the funding?
Realistically, I think with Waldeboro's timeline, I would say, because there's going to be like a March primary or something for the midterm elections, aren't there? And there's a gubernatorial election next year, right?
Yes.
So there's going to be a March primary, I assume. Theoretically, I would think we could work on the stuff now, go to the voters in March to get whatever plan we're going to do approved, because we also have to bond the money. We have to get the 20% somewhere.
Yep.
Do that, and then we'd have an application submitted by March. Or not March, April or May at the latest.
So that assumes bonding is in place as well then? Or at least an arrangement for bonding.
Yeah, we'd have to get the 20% somehow.
Yeah.
Now, if
Can we use the TIF district for any of that?
we can use the TIF district for that because it's supporting an EDA project focused on economic development
And its infrastructure.
and its
Yeah.
infrastructure. If
And
we
they've
did-
already approved the TIF. The town's already approved the TIF.
Yes. I just don't know how much money we've collected at this point.
it's not that much. Odd alewives and one part in the industrial park certainly have given it some oomph, but it's not groundbreaking yet. We've always just been waiting for American Unagi so we get that good estimate, but now they're starting to do it. I think once the building's done, hopefully by the winter, Daryl can go out, he can get he can give a good idea of what it's going to look like, and then we can base the bond on that.
And we were also getting an increment from the solar project too, weren't we? No?
I was going to look into that, but the town would have to spend money to send out a person to evaluate that property and do all that. So I didn't want to put it in the TIF district
Okay.
if that was the case. We could, but the town would have to spend some money to tax the solar farms. Yeah, that was the big thing I wanted to get through, that if we buckle down and really get a project going.
One of the things so I did actually read through the 2018 comprehensive plan. So I don't know if the rest of you had a chance to do that or not, but one of the things that kind of struck me was the idea of in some way combining, the Route 1 corridor with the historic village. And some of the things that we're talking about here, in terms of even expanding sewer and water and getting a medical center in there and kind of, I won't say building up that area between, but it does kind of create more of a bridge between the two areas, which kind of falls into the downtown development plan as well. So I think that's an interesting direction to go in. I think both are interesting. Either one I think would be valuable to the town, honestly.
So,
All right.
so maybe what I'll have to do is get things put together for like the downtown master plan of what would be implemented. And then maybe we could do like an informal reach out to residents and say, hey, here are these two projects we have in mind. Which one do you think will help the town? Like
New medical center.
the new medical center or the sewer and water at the industrial
Sewer and
park?
water up to, I think I know which way that'll go.
Hey, Max,
Yeah, Jen.
I got a question. I know that, so some towns have multiple projects that they're working on to try to get them ready for EDA. What does EDA think of if a town would submit 2 projects and they could evaluate them to see which one they think is a better payback. Do they do that?
No, not really. They just look at it as how does it work into the regional plans,
Okay,
and both things that Waldeboro would submit are good regional part of the McEd's plan, because one is creating more industrial space, and the other is diversifying Waldeboro's economy to address more medical needs. So I don't see how either one would be denied.
yeah,
Well, and then the other part of Waldeboro's one is revitalizing the downtown community. So
right,
both are fine projects. But to submit an EDA, we'd have to get preliminary engineering reports and environmental narratives done. And that's going to cost, that's us spending money before we even submit an application.
yeah,
There's nothing that says we couldn't do one year and then do another one the following year.
Right. It's that 80
funding's available.
Right. It's the 80% match that is the key thing that
It's attractive right now. Yeah.
But I mean, with the downtown plan, it was always imagined, the EDA would do 50%. We could try to do CDBG because they have a downtown program. So get money from there and then do money elsewhere. And now I don't know if the Senate's gone through with the vote or not, but the House, they're working on the $1 trillion infrastructure plan. That might have an impact on this next year, for all I know. So, I'm talking about the 80% right now, but who knows what next year's going to be at this point.
There'll certainly be monies available for infrastructure.
Right. And even if it's not 80%, it's still 50%.
It's still going to be good. Yeah.
It's still good.
Yep. All right. Okay. Any other questions for Max before we move on? Okay, so one of the things that we did at our last get-together was kind of table the request from the select board for the EDC to come up with some kind of messaging, or I don't know what's the right word is. Branding for the town of Waldeboro. What we said was we were going to look at the comprehensive plan and try to see what's specifically in there it would impact the EDC, and I did that, and I went through that plan and found 2, 4, 7, 10, 12 specific actions for the Economic Development Committee based on the plan. In addition, there's a section 3-1, which is economic and community development. On page 2, there's a reference to the downtown development plan. Is that a separate plan that's not part of this plan?
The downtown master plan?
Yeah.
The downtown master plan is separate from the comprehensive plan.
And have we seen that?
I believe I shared that document a few times already. It was the one done in, we're talking
might
about the
have.
one from 2011, right?
The one that
yes,
Yeah,
is that the one that they're referencing in the
Yes.
2018?
yes.
yes. Yep, that is the one,
Only had one downtown master plan,
right,
as far as I know.
yeah. So, yeah, we referenced it in the comp plan specifically to try to bring some of the action ideas and thoughts into the comp plan. Instead of, oftentimes we have these plans or these reports or these processes that we go through, and sometimes they just stay separate in their own little worlds. And the comp plan was meant to be an umbrella for a lot of that.
So does that answer the question, Jane?
Yeah, I'm looking at the reference here, and there isn't a year, but what you're saying is there is only the one, so.
Yeah.
And I see George Seaver was on the committee for that. Jen, you were on the committee for that. All right. Okay, good. And then, so I guess the question is, of these various references for the EDC to essentially take charge. And a lot of the references are kind of vague in terms of what the expectation is for us. But basically, if there's a directive, it's, hey, the EDC is going to take responsibility for this, essentially. Yeah. And it's up to us to decide how we're going to try to meet the expectations the best we can. So the question becomes, of these various opportunities for the EDC, where do we want to zero in on our efforts? I know it sounds like probably the downtown development plan and how it ties into the comprehensive plan maybe makes the best sense, especially since now we're talking about looking at funding to bring sewer and water up, so we can look at the future not hospital, but healthcare facility.
Yeah.
And whatever other expansions we want to do in that town-owned land that we have right beside the school. So I'll just kind of open up the table to that conversation and see what the ideas are. Anybody?
Well,
What do you got for your 12 actions?
I was gonna say, other than the downtown plan, was there some other big item you were thinking?
There's so I said we're referenced on page 6 2 times, page 9 twice, page 10 3 times, page 11 3 times, and page 22 2 times. And those are all different aspects of the comprehensive plan. So yeah, we do get mentioned in other areas. Like one might be attract new families to Waldorf.
Right. Okay. I see what you're talking about.
So is that what we want to take on? So the question becomes, of these of these mandates for us, where do we want to focus?
We were mentioning extending the sewer and water up to the industrial park just a moment ago. Was that part of the comprehensive plan that you were also thinking of?
It wasn't. It may be. It could be.
I think improving
In fact, I read that in here. It's in here.
Yeah, I think
so. But I wasn't actually thinking. Well, it's all part of the question. I was thinking in terms of the new business moving in, and
right.
Is that a need there all of a sudden that maybe we didn't have a year ago?
Fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is one of those things where it really would be great for George to be here to talk about like the needs of the industrial park, just because I don't know if sewer. I don't know how much he wants sewer up there as much as he might want water, because I know he has the wellhead, but especially if the focus is going to be a lot more on the aquaculture aspect.
Well, and if there's a huge demand on water, which there will be, and I don't know what his well capacity is, but he might be up against it.
Right. And that might be it.
And the town might be too. I don't know.
That's why I wish he was here.
All right. So I think what's fair is that, well, actually, can we say it this way, that we think we have 2 viable projects that we want to focus on at this point?
Well, some of the ones that were mentioned in the master plan, like the Waldorf Theater, is becoming real.
Right.
They're having another performance on August 19th.
Mm-hmm.
They've had 2 already, one of which was a play that they put on. So that's beginning to evolve, and that's going to impact
The downtown. Yeah.
Yep. Parking is still an issue.
Parking is an issue.
Yep.
And the 220 or the Main Street Friendship Jefferson intersection, that's now.
It was identified in the master plan as a confusing intersection, and the accident that was 11 accidents so far this year at that intersection. 11 accidents. I mean, these are things that the town is already aware of and is actively addressing. I think Max and Julie have been putting their heads together. Julie's inviting the Department of Transportation to come talk to the town about that intersection and things they can do to begin to mitigate the problems. I think the master plan is a pretty clear guide to the town to what needs to be done. I think what we're struggling in is where does this committee fit into that?
Well, the master plan really kind of identifies where we fit. The question is, where do we want to focus, I think.
Well, from my recollection on the master plan, there were, and Jen, I think you were doing the master plan too. So yeah, so you can correct me on some other big items that were there. But I know, well, Bob's already mentioned the lovely on-street parking and road work that people I think would be confused if it was gone tomorrow. I think off-street parking, like significant work to the off-street parking was one of them. Like home property.
It was called wayfinding. It was
Wayfinding. Yeah.
Wayfinding is signage, etc. People don't know where they can park. They don't know where. I mean, we're on a hill,
Right?
So it can be confusing. And but it's actually got some great, great ideas. It has ideas that were appropriate for funding in the past, but may be changed now. It has a timeline on it as well, but we could change that. So it was meant to not be, I mean, it would be great if it could be a part of an EDA project, because then you could address all those things. But it was set up to be kind of an incremental thing because we were trying to be realistic at the time.
Well, I'm just trying to think of some of the bigger things that were in that plan that we'd want to get going. So I think one thing was about getting more Riverside focus, like the buildings on Friendship Road, trying to get them to have some business that would like be facing towards the river. And I was actually going to ask Bob and Jan that, is it possible I could like go into the bookstore and just look around the building one time?
Oh, absolutely.
Just because I figured the buildings are going to be very similar, so I wanted to like get an idea of what.
It's got a beautiful view out the back.
Exactly, and there might be some space that, if we got the right funding, that can be incorporated to have a second use for the building. What were you going to say, Jen?
Well, the one thing that happened was after that plan, Jeff had talked to Ted, and I think he bought a little piece of the land in the back there so he could build the small restaurant there. And that was part of, the idea of trying to bring it so that we could have some kind of access to looking at the river while we're eating whatever. Harry's restaurant, which I think now is, oh damn, I can't think now, I think it's being used for catering. So that also has a great view out the back. They used to have an upstairs, like a third floor and a second floor where they ran things. I mean, there's a variety of options.
So, yeah, and so my point is that was one big aspect that EDA can do it. I think we'd have to probably have the access to the parking lot. So we'd have to restart those talks. And I think we could also look at going beyond the downtown, because the plan was just focused on that little area, like the professional building to not stores, lumber, but the building before that. I don't even think it was that far up Main Street, and it went to the bridge, but I'm trying to think how far up north. Did it include the library? I don't know if it included the library, but it wasn't.
I think it went up. They were evaluating the houses for historical perspective, and it's on the map anyway.
Yeah, but my point is, that's the focus it was giving, and it was talking about making pocket parks. It was talking about improving like entrances and recreation. But the Conservation Commission has actually been working on some pocket parks, just not in that area. Like there's even the Mid-Coast Conservancy's little river park.
Yeah.
That's just out, like just north of the project area of the downtown plan. And there's the rest area that's right off of Route 1, and there's Elm Street, which are starting to get a lot of attention now. Those are getting some slight improvements that could be considered part of the plan. And, then we're talking about like a Greavy's in the Kaler's Corner area, or Odd Alewives that's just off of not Old Route 1, that's just off of the Main Street intersection.
Yep.
Some might say that's part of the downtown plan, essentially. And we probably want to include all the way to the West Main Street intersection, because that's where really our Main Street area starts. So maybe the shift shouldn't be on downtown, it should be a village plan.
So the advantage of that is that it falls into the whole idea about, getting
Integrating.
Route 1 corridor, incorporating
Exactly.
the village.
Yeah.
Not just having a drive by and not understanding that there's a whole village, to the whatever, what is that? South? Whatever.
Yeah, sure. But in terms of what the EDC could do, it is pretty much just getting towards getting the EDA submitted. So making sure we have our details finalized for what this project would call for, seeing if it would be necessary, and then directly just going out to residents, like physically going to some of these buildings in the downtown and say, this is what the plan involves. What would you say as someone who's been disconnected from this, want to add or take away from this program? And then get their thoughts and input their estimates and, do some forums on that. That's what the EDC could do for implementing the plan. And then there's other parts that wouldn't get EDA funding that we could decide whether or not to include. Like Jen was mentioning the historic village on the National Register. That's possible. It wouldn't get EDA funding, but we could certainly just do better at sort of advertising and marketing what that would entail.
Yeah.
And then doing some research on what a historic consultant would cost to do that implementation. So that when the time comes, who knows? Maybe there's going to be another grant for all I know. I've been sarcastically saying that for the last week, and every time I've said that, some money magically shows up. So who knows? That might be the case where we go out and we find out it's going to cost $15,000 to get a historic consultant to do all the work. It's probably going to be more. But then the town says, yeah, we would support this idea. Let's get this historic designation. And then maybe it's just going to be part of a budget cycle. Maybe we'll get some grant funding. But that's something the EDC could work towards as well. Marketing some aspects that can't be done in the EDA.
So the challenge that I have is that, is that when we talk about programs in the historic village or downtown area, that most of that's privately owned.
Yeah.
And so how do we really impact change to privately owned property?
If they get, again, that's why I say it's more of a marketing thing of saying what benefits there are to put it in that area, which is
What are you asking? Jan, what are you asking about? What's the benefit of what?
Being on the National Registry.
Right.
Which is the tax credit for rehabilitation.
Right. And I believe that it's an option. Like you can create a historical district, but then the property owner has the option of putting their home into that designation, which then opens the door for tax credits and things like that for improvements and things like that. Years ago it got a bad name, but my understanding is that there's some opportunity there for people. For instance, we were looking at the buildings in particular on right on Main Street there. And at one point, Ted and some of the others were talking about, wouldn't it be great to share an elevator between buildings, because they're owned by different people, but that would give accessible access to the upper floor And, so it's a variety of things that people might think of. I don't know if everybody knows, but those buildings right in that block are connected in the basement by a, I guess you would call it kind of it's not a trail, but deliveries used to be made under there with a horse and cart from underneath. So it has like, it's an interesting. So, it could be, it could be that bricks needed repointing or roofs needed being done, or, people are affected by accessibility, the ADA stuff. There's a variety of things.
Right. But yeah, that's overall what I think the EDC's role can be in implementing the downtown plan. Marketing, ironically, we're coming full circle back to marketing, talking about what really going out there and
We really have to brand Waldeboro.
we don't have to brand Waldeboro. We had to brand the plan. Like it would be similar to when we were getting the TIF done.
Yeah.
Where we went out to the post office and we were telling people on a Saturday, was it a Saturday morning? We were telling people on a Saturday morning, this is why you should vote yes on implementing the TIF.
Yeah.
And we got their input on, this is what you need to do in the downtown, or this is what you got to do. You got to do something similar, but instead of just waiting at the post office, we got to go to the individual businesses and talk to the actual owners. Yeah. And the people who live in that area as well. They should get their opinions heard. If we were to say we want to improve the downtown parking, they may say, well, that's my favorite spot right on Friendship
Where I
Road.
walk my dog. Yeah.
Yeah. I park on Friendship Road and I walk my dog in the middle of the street.
Yeah.
Why would you want to take that away from me? We do want to get that. And for EDA, they do want to hear those anecdotes, those stories of how this type of project has a significant impact on their lives. For what I'll always remember for Damerscotta's project was we had to talk about how flooding was impactful. There was one person who said, we weren't here when there was a flood. We had a wedding dress in there. If it was just like an inch higher, we would have now been out. We would have had to pay for someone's wedding dress and their wedding dress replacement.
Yeah.
And like, that's the type of stuff we need to talk about when we submit these applications.
So the EDC role is important as a sounding board and as a supporter and as a body that comes behind or coalesces behind ideas for development. One concrete project that comes to my mind beyond the sewer and water expansion one is the parking lot behind the drugstore. That's a key element in improving parking in the downtown area. And the town doesn't own it. So,
and that could be part of the downtown master plan.
it is. I'm sure it is part of the downtown master.
Or the potential EDA project, getting it and working it to fixing it up, what the new emotions made of it.
Well, allocating money to buy it, or maybe some of it donated. I don't know what the thought is, but is to encourage that discussion to take place so that it becomes a priority on the list of a long list of things that we need to try to do to move things forward.
Sorry about that.
I agree with that. Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah,
Does that parking, I'm trying to think, there's a house between the river and the businesses there's the businesses, there's the parking lot, and there's a house on Main Street. But then the land behind that house, does it go down to the river?
It does. I'm looking at the map right now.
And so who owns that?
I think
Is that
that might be Alfred's store. It's either him or the utility district, probably.
Are you talking?
Biden has a building right there.
Or it might be them. I'm thinking about it.
Are you talking about the old sewer property?
No, you're talking about the land, right?
Yeah, like what's the land between basically the back of the businesses down to the water? really what I'm talking about.
There's a lot of empty land. there.
You can keep talking.
There's a lot of what?
A lot of empty land.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, that would be a wonderful development opportunity, I would think,
I mean, you can see.
but it's privately held
Look at
right now.
this. So there's the parking lot.
Yep.
And right here, and then you got all this land with that house you talked about.
Right,
that-
yeah.
That's privately held. But this land here, I don't know who owns it.
Yeah,
All that land along the river, I don't know. who
up
owns
to,
it.
right up to store.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, that would be a wonderful park.
Yep.
And parking,
It could improve the parking availability.
you could have a little clam shack there.
All right.
John left us a note. He said he has to pop off the meeting. He'll send us an update on COVID to include in the minutes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, John is gone?
Oh, yeah.
Darn it, I wanted to ask him about Lincoln County and COVID, to see where we are.
Yeah, I
Got
see it's past 8 o'clock now, so we probably
He
should wrap
said,
up.
he said that he'll send us an update on COVID to include.
Okay, if you could let him know, thank you.
Yeah, but he's gone. I think we'll just send him an email afterwards. Yeah, just very quickly, what I see on the tax map is that it's sort of split. Like there's this one individual who has the building. He does have some land that's like goes up to where the utility district has their place, and then the rest of that is store lumber.
And that's right, the utilities district has a fair chunk of that as well.
This is the parking here, right?
Or is it more a right of way?
It's more of a right of way. They have enough land to put the building on there, but they don't really have that much land there. Nothing too significant.
Man, if that house ever came up for sale.
So we have to figure out how we want to strategize to get that property and then how to use it.
Right. I agree.
Which property are we talking?
We're talking about that
That
area
building.
between the parking lot behind the drugstore, all the way down to the river.
I mean, you can do that. That can be part of the downtown plan. I mean, if that person's willing to sell it now, that would be nice, or even a chunk of the land. If not, that's probably something you'd have to do later, especially if you want to do an EDA this year. But that's why I say the EDC's a big marketing person at this point, and how to do all this stuff, approaching people and getting some activities done.
All right.
Yeah, we past day, we probably need a end goal here.
So I think we could wrap up. I'm not sure what our, well, actually, if you could, one more time, please, send us the downtown
Master plan.
development plan. And then why don't we make that our homework till the next meeting, just to kind of review that and strategize in terms of what that means. Understanding that it's going to incorporate, the new health center and the sewer expansion. I think we got to somehow make that all one idea.
It can be.
Yeah.
We can make the argument we're doing some sewer expansions and utility expansions in general in the Route 1 village area. So like, there's no water that goes up to Moody's Dining. We can make the argument that that's part of it, even though we're doing the expansion on the other end, because it's still in that same area.
Same line, yeah.
Yeah. Well, same area in general.
And then the new area becomes, Route 1's the boundary and Main Street's the boundary, essentially.
I mean, it is called the Waldoboro Downtown Revitalization Master Plan.
Yes.
And it's dated November 3rd, 2011.
Yep.
That's what we're talking about.
Yep. So maybe that's our homework, is to review that one more time.
Okay.
It's somewhat dated, but it's still probably valid, I would imagine.
Well, maybe one thing we can do is update it.
Update it. It's a great idea.
Yep.
All right. Jen, any other new or old business you'd like to talk about?
I'm trying to think. I didn't really prepare anything. No, I don't think so.
All right. We good?
John will give
That's
us
good.
Yep, John will give us the COVID numbers that I will